It is day 4,561 of Boswell being in business, and we'd like to welcome you to a special Boswell Book Company Schlitz Audubon Nature Center virtual event. We are so honored to be working with one of our favorite partners, Schlitz Audubon Nature Center. I'm Daniel Golden from Boswell, and I would like to introduce Tom Finley, the Director of Education at Schlitz Audubon Nature Center. Welcome.
Welcome, Daniel. Thank you so much. Schlitz Audubon is extremely proud to be part of this virtual event and this great relationship that we've had over the last number of years. It's a fantastic day and a really fascinating topic for me. I'm excited to be sharing it with all of you. For those of you that aren't familiar with Schlitz Audubon, we are a private nonprofit nature center just about 9 miles north of Milwaukee, 185 acres along the shores of Lake Michigan, open to the public almost every day of the year. A beautiful 6 miles of hiking trails, many of them accessible. And in fact, this year we're celebrating our 50th anniversary. So it's a pretty big year for us. And so we hope that all of our listeners can sometime get out and visit us. There are several events that are upcoming that I think would be really interesting for our listeners. And I know, Daniel, you'll be able to share them. Upcoming, we have a Schlitz Audubon Bird Club event on October 13th, which is going to be actually a movie, as well as a really unique event, Extreme Raptor Day, where we get to showcase our live animals, our birds of prey, over 14 animals at a really special event on November the 6th. So look for those links forthcoming. We also have, being nestled in the community of Bayside, we have a great opportunity to see lots of deer and turkey and urban wildlife. And in Mary's book, it's a lot of interesting, sometimes conflicts, but at least human-animal interactions. And so this is such an appropriate thing. And I can't wait to hear both Roman and Mary tonight. And as we've already heard, Roman Mars is going to be our moderator and our host for this great event. Roman Mars is the host and creator of 99% Invisible, which is a sound-rich narrative podcast about unnoticed architecture and design that shape our world. With approximately 500 million downloads, the 99% Invisible podcast is one of the most popular broadcasts in the world. And both he and Mary are longtime friends, which we'll find out about in just a short amount of time. And of course, our featured author this evening, Mary Roach, is the author of numerous New York Times bestsellers, including Stiff, Spook, Bonk, Gulp, Grunt, and Packing for Mars. And the new book, Fuzz, which just debuted in September, is already number 5 on the New York Times bestseller list. She's also has a TED Talk made, and it's one of the 20 most watched of the TED Talk series. She's been a guest editor for Best American Science and Nature Writing, a finalist for the Royal Society's Winston Prize, and a winner of the American Engineering Society's Journalism Award, in a category for which she was the sole entrant. So it's fantastic. It's great to be with you. I'd love to introduce Roman.
Thank you so much for having me. So we're going to start this with a reading from Mary Roach. So why don't you go ahead, Mary, and then we'll start the questions.
Sure. Yeah, it's great to be here. And thanks to everybody, Boswell's and the Schlitz Audubon Center. It's a place I'd love to go. It sounds beautiful. I'm going to read just, in fact, from the opening of the book. On June 26, 1659, a representative from 5 towns in a province of northern Italy initiated legal proceedings against caterpillars. The local specimens went the complaint were trespassing and pilfering from people's gardens and orchards. A summons was issued and 5 copies made and nailed to trees in forests adjacent to each town. The caterpillars were ordered to appear in court on the 28th of June at a specified hour, where they would be assigned legal representation. Of course, no caterpillars appeared at the appointed time, but the case went forward anyway. In a surviving document, the court recognizes the rights of caterpillars to live freely and happily, provided does not impair the happiness of man. The judge decreed that the caterpillars be assigned a plot of alternate land for their sustenance and enjoyment. By the time the details were worked out, the defendants, having pupated, were surely through with their devastations, and all parties no doubt left the proceedings satisfied. This is from a 1906 book, The Criminal Prosecution and Capital Punishment of Animals, a book that when I initially stumbled upon it, I thought it might be an ambitious hoax. However, here were bears formally excommunicated from the church, slugs given 3 warnings to stop nettling farmers under penalty of smiting. But the author was a respected historian and linguist, and he quickly wore me down with a depth of detail gleaned from original documents, 19 of which are reproduced in their original language in a series of appendices. We have the itemized expense report of a French bailiff submitted in 1403 following the murder trial of a pig. We have writs of ejectment issued to rats and thrust into their burrows. From a 1545 complaint brought by vintners against a species of greenish weevil, we have not only the names of the lawyers, but early examples of that time-honored legal tactic, the stall. As far as I could tell, the proceedings dragged on 8 or 9 months, in any case, longer than the lifespan of a weevil. I present all this not as evidence of the silliness of bygone legal systems, but as evidence of the intractable nature of human-wildlife conflict, as it is known today by those who grapple with it professionally. The question has defied satisfactory resolution for centuries. What is the proper course when nature breaks laws intended for people? I think that'll do. I was gonna, is that kind of, should I read the footnote or is that enough? That's probably enough.
Yeah, well, I love the footnotes.
All right.
I
got one more. This is short. It's a footnote.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a footnote. My footnotes are me just having fun and being unable to not put something in the book that doesn't necessarily belong there. Okay. This one, I got to do the reading classes. Okay. And this is, I'm talking, the footnote has to do with, I'm talking about rodents and how crafty they are in terms of getting into people's homes and how easily they can fit through a small hole, in fact, a hole the size of their own head. Okay. Will Pitt of the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute documented this when he was with the National Wildlife Research Center. The house mice tested were all able to access food by passing through 13-millimeter holes, the average width of the local house mouse head. Less formal proof takes the form of my friend Steph, who, one hot day, upon returning from a walk with her dog, grabbed a water bottle from the floor of her truck. She took a swig and discovered, in order, a fetid taste and a dead mouse inside the bottle. I don't think you'll need a doctor, an advice nurse said upon hearing that Steph had spat the water out, but you may need a psychiatrist. For me, Steph dutifully went back and measured the head. It was exactly the size of the water bottle's opening.
It's a good friend.
Sure is.
Well, that's so great. I love this whole topic. I really enjoyed your book, as I enjoyed all your books. And as a former plant scientist, I was excited that even killer trees made an appearance, and the book isn't just about charismatic megafauna. But the burning question I've been asking everyone in my life since I've read the book, and I've been dying to ask you, is this, and it'll set up, I think will be a good amount of time in our discussion today. Would you rather be killed by a bear or a leopard?
Oh, absolutely a leopard. If I'm going to be killed, leopard for sure. Because a leopard is a killing machine. A leopard, like a mountain lion, this is an animal that kills creatures to eat them. It's a true carnivore. So it's very efficient. It's got the teeth that kind of cut like scissors, and it sneaks up. So you aren't even aware. You don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
And from behind, often it jumps, pounces, grabs, and does the killing bite, killing bite on the back of the neck, and often just severing the spinal cord, and a very quick, I don't know, painless would be the word, but quick and not a lot of time to think about what's going on. The bear, so definitely the leopard. The bear, leopard. The bear is designed. It's an omnivore. You know, it's nuts and berries and grasses. So it's got molars and its jaw moves side to side for crushing stuff, and it doesn't have the sharp scissor effect. Mm-hmm. And a bear, and bears don't. I mean, they so rarely decide to kill people. It's usually, the bear is going after some food that somebody has, and they have a dog, and the dog gets into it with the bear, and the person intervenes, and the bear turns to the person. It's so rare that, but if a bear does decide that it wants you dead, it does what bears do with other bears, is their teeth are their weapons, and they go for the face because it's lightly furred. Mm-hmm. And the human face is even more lightly furred. So the quote I like from the guy at the wildlife attack forensics training that I went to is, he said, bears are more bite, 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 bite. It's just a mess. But and I know what it looks like because this conference, this training session was held in a casino outside Reno, Nevada, because that's the host wildlife agency that year. Mm-hmm. And so it was a very bizarre, there was a bingo game going on in the next hall. But anyway, there were soft touch mannequins that were being used for us to kind of look at, so we could learn how to tell a wolf from a bear from a cougar, according to the injuries on the body. And the people who run this seminar, who are wildlife professionals, had rather lovingly crafted these very high fidelity injuries, like, the eye hanging and the scalping. I mean, so they were, pretty,
graphic,
pretty grisly. So I know what it looks like. I know what the aftermath looks like. And so thank you, the leopard, please.
Yeah, exactly. What I loved about this is, like, it seems like a difficult question. It's like one of those existential questions but there is a right answer. And that is like, but you would rather be attacked by a bear for sort of the reasons that you mentioned, because it's sort of like when a leopard is coming at you, this is all stuff I've learned from you. so I'm an expert of it as of 2 weeks ago. But it's like if a leopard's coming, when you notice the leopard, you're already done, basically. It stalks you from behind and, whatever, it takes you out. But the bear, if it attacks, then there's some recourse, like there's some sort of stuff. But once it gets into you, and if you get killed by one, my God, it is grisly. The way you describe this forensic, I guess, conference where people are figuring that stuff out is just sort of classic Mary Roach.
Well, the combination of the setting and the material, and also it's a training that is taught by a bunch of guys from the British Columbia Conservation Officers Corps. They're basically the wildlife agency up there. They're all Canadian, so everybody's Canadian. So they have that wonderful way of speaking with the end that goes up. So that's the combination of that way, the kind of folksy way of talking with the subject matter was just killing me. Like, the guy, there was one point the guy goes, he was describing a case that he worked on. He said, so we had the head hanging on by 2-3 tendons, that kind of thing. I love that kind of thing. And the bingo game going on. So the bingo people, because the bathroom was down past both of these big, ours was the Ponderosa room, and they had, I don't know the name of their room, but they would have to go to the toilet sometimes. So then the doors were open. So you'd see these people from the bingo game go by and look in, and there's these naked, bloody mannequins on tables. And none of them, I was surprised nobody came in and said, I'm sorry, what is going on in here? It's just my kind of scene. Yeah, I don't set these things up. They just fall in my lap.
So so the book, for people new to it or coming here, haven't not read it, it's about, human wildlife conflict, this and sort of when animals, break the law, or nature breaks the law. And and the beginning of the book is about, it sort of goes from capital crimes to misdemeanors kind of throughout the book. And the beginning is about, bears and elephants and leopards who on occasion end up, killing a person. But one of the things that's so the bears are particularly interesting. We're from California. We live out here. You probably go into areas of bear habitat quite a bit. I certainly do. I like to hike a lot. But one of the things I can never remember the rules of what you should do with bears. Even though it seems like that's something that I could commit to memory pretty easily. So what are some of the rules of thumb of when a bear does a thing, what should you do? Depending on the bear or whatever.
Yeah. The thing that you sometimes hear and is which I used to think was the thing you're supposed to do. If it's brown, lie down, and if it's black, fight back, which I presented to one of these guys at the Wildlife Human Attack Response Training Conference, and he said, "No, okay, I'll tell you why that's not very helpful. First of all, brown bears often look black. Black bears frequently look brown. Better way to tell the two apart is by the length of their claws, and if you're close enough to be figuring out how long the claws are, is probably not going to be very useful for you." So he said that your job, whether it's whatever the animal is, but particularly with bears, is to determine, is this a defensive maneuver? This, if you feel like this bear is like kind of threatening you, is it a defensive maneuver? Or is it predatory? It's almost always defensive. Like, you surprise this bear, it's got a cache, C-A-C-H-E, of food that it wants to protect. It thinks that you are coming for its decomposing moose carcass, and it does not want you to come close to the decomposing moose because that belongs to the bear. Or it has cubs and it's feeling defensive. So it's going to just try to be really scary, going to be big and loud and come at you fast, but it's a bluff charge, almost always a bluff charge. So it's going to just kind of, and alligators do that too. A lot of animals do that. They kind of like just want you to back off. And so your job is to back off slowly, just calmly, let it know that you're in fact not a threat and that you don't want the decomposing moose carcass, and you're not going to harm its cub rather. And so that's what you do. But on the rare instances of a bear, or you're more likely, cougar is more likely to be something you might notice kind of circling around, and it's kind of a stealthy, weird, like the ears would be flat if it comes toward you, and if it's not a bluff, if it's coming, all the way to you, and it's clearly not bluffing, your job is to fight back. If you have bear spray, obviously now is the time to spray it.
But don't save it.
Don't save it for maybe this will be okay. Maybe I don't need the spray. You need the spray. So go for the face. Do what the bears do. Hit it. Go for the place that you can hurt it. So the face, and just let it know that you're not going down without a fight. So that is kind of what you do, and hope never to have to figure that out for myself.
I mean, and it's like, it's all pretty rare, and the tone of the book, and I don't like, we're talking about grisly things of people being attacked by animals and stuff. This is our fault, that we come into contact with them, and for the most part, this stuff pretty rarely happens. But there are teams of people like trained to do forensics when animals attack, mainly to tell if an animal actually attacked, as opposed to a sort of a sneaky human.
Yes. What's, if you start with what species? Human, bear, mountain lion, and that you tell by looking at the injuries. Because it would be, there have been cases where a person was found dead, and the person investigating decided, this was a mountain lion attack because there's puncture wounds to the neck. So clearly this person had heard, okay, they do a killing bite to the neck, and he saw puncture wounds on the neck. But anybody who was actually trained and had seen what that looks like would know that that wasn't the case, because there was no, if there's puncture marks from the canines, the upper canines, there should be a corresponding lower jaw marks, and they didn't have that. Also, the shape of a mountain lion canine tooth is different than the shape of it was an ice pick. It was a guy with an ice pick who had committed.
It wasn't a vampire. It was just
it wasn't a vampire. So this guy who had killed somebody with an ice pick on a hiking trail went free for I think it was about a decade. He ended up in prison for something else and bragged about the ice pick killing and the fact that he got away with it. And they blamed a mountain lion, and he was eventually put away for that as well, I believe. But anyway, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so you got to figure out which species based on the appearance of the wounds. Yeah.
But then they also figure out what individual bear, like, through all the types of forensic. How does that go? How does that happen?
Yeah, they
or whatever animal. I don't mean to presume it's a bear.
Right. Well, it's 1 to 3 between 0 and 3 fatal bear attacks per year in the United States. Fewer mountain lions, so more likely to be a bear. So we'll go with bear. At that point, they need to establish linkage between the victim and the perpetrator. So when there is a bear attack, sometimes the bear is shot on the scene. Other times a trap is set, and because bears will come back, animals sometimes hide the remains of the carcass to come back later. So if there's an individual in custody, shall we say, that's been caught, that's been trapped, is being held, they'll do DNA. They'll often do DNA. Sometimes it can be done with the width between the canine teeth. You can look at the teeth of the animal and the marks on the human. You can sometimes don't even have to do DNA, but you can do DNA with the blood of the victim if that's on the bear. In the under the claws, that kind of the stuff that you see on CSI, or saliva on the body of the victim, and then comparing it with the DNA of the bear. Just kind of amazing details, like with a mountain lion, saying, well, the claws are kind of hollow in the middle, and there might be some human up in there, or with the bear, like check. You want to check under the gums. There might be some human under the gums. Just to think about human having, needing a toothpick for human flesh.
Right.
Kind of weird. But so that, and what I loved was that if it's not a link, the suspect is released. The bear is released. There was a case up in Canada that one of the instructors talked about, where a woman had been killed in her yard by a bear, and the first 2 bears that they trapped, there was no match, and it was the 3rd bear. So the first 2 suspects were released. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, no, I like that. And there is, what I was sort of intrigued by was the sort of like the parallels in the criminal procedure of forensics and then forms of punishment, or also like present. What is the range of things if a bear is a repeated like perpetrator of either tearing into food or injuring a person? What are the options for what happens then?
Yeah, well, with different with cougars, there are different parts of California where it's I think there's a 2 strikes rule. Those are sort of like similar to we did have in California, the 3 strikes rule, and there is a part of Southern California, I believe, is 3 strikes. So people calling in not killings, but not human killings, an animal that kills a human in this country anyway is destroyed if it kills a human. But for say it's taking livestock, somebody's backyard goats or whatever, and they've called in to request a depredation permit, it's called. I think they're given, the animal's given 2 or 3 strikes. It's state by state. Really depends on is it a state with a lot of advocates of animal welfare, or is it a more hunting centric state, or so it's all over the map. But it is interesting to see that there are those. And in India, where I also reported on leopards and elephants, because a surprising number of people, far more people than are killed by bears here. There they make a distinction. If it's a killing of a human by a leopard, they make a distinction: defensive versus predatory, kind of like manslaughter versus murder.
Yeah, that was I was going to get to India, because India seems to be on the front lines of human wildlife conflict. I mean, leopards and elephants and macaques, and like once you got to India in the book, you seem to be able to drive from place to place and like mark off a number of species on your own bingo card. You know,
it was a very productive trip.
So talk to me about that, maybe with an example of each, but also kind of like, you know, what is going on there? Like it seems to be both. There's a lot of room for interaction because it's a populous country with a lot of nature and a lot of people. Yes. But also they seem to have a different relationship, you know, like the distinctions of manslaughter versus murder, or that they're going to, they know that, you know, these monkeys are a problem, but they can't help but feed them, you know, and they're also sacred in many ways too. So what is going on in India? What did you find?
Well, it has to do with what you just alluded to, which is it has to do with Hinduism. And in Hinduism, we have, you know, an elephant god and a monkey god. Those are two animals that cause a lot of conflicts in India. 500 people a year killed by elephants, which is kind of a stunning statistic for me. I had no idea. The monkeys are not killing people usually, although some people have fallen from balconies.
Yeah.
When macaques have jumped down from the roof to get into their house or their apartment.
The deputy mayor of Delhi was killed.
The deputy mayor of Delhi was killed, plummeted to his death from his balcony when macaques leaped from the roof. You know, a group of them came down and no, there were no, don't think there were, couldn't find an eyewitness account of like whether he was fighting with them or he lost his balance or they pushed him. I don't imagine they pushed him. They were just trying to get into his home to get to the kitchen and look for food. So monkeys, they're pretty slick. They do they'll grab cell phones or sunglasses, things that or wallets that they know are of value to the person, and then kind of hold it out and hold on to it until you give them a piece of fruit or candy or something. So they'll ransom it for fruit or whatever you're going to give, whatever tasty item you have. And then they will drop it. They'll drop the phone or they'll drop your sunglasses. I met a woman they took her asthma inhaler.
Oh, it's diabolical.
I know. And it's a very vexing problem for the veterinary unit for the South Delhi Municipal Corporation, which is sort of the bureaucratic heart of Delhi. And there's a gentleman who's supposed to be dealing with this issue, like do something about the monkeys. People are always complaining about the monkeys, but anytime, like what they do, in fact, is catch them and take them down to a sanctuary in the southern part of the city. But it is almost impossible to keep monkey catchers on staff. Nobody wants that job because of the stigma. Like you don't want to be in a Hindu nation, a person who manhandles, harasses, or does anything to a monkey. So you have a situation where people outside the temples, the Hanuman temple, there are always tons of macaques because they know people are going to basically make an offering. They come outside and as one last offering to the gods, they give the living version something delicious to eat. So they are creating this problem to a large extent in urban areas. And they want the problem to go away, but they don't want the monkeys harmed. They don't want anything done. They just want the issue to disappear. And it is really, really frustrating for the guy. And I spent time with him. His name is Dr. R.S.B. Tyagi. And he'll see you, but as soon as you sit down, you ask him any questions, he'll go, the monkeys, yes, this is the purview of the forest department. Dr. Ishwar Singh, have you met him? I'll give you his number. I'm like, no, I've tried to call him, yeah. And in fact, Dr. Ishwar Singh, when you do contact him, will say, these are no longer wild animals. They are not the purview of the forest department. That is the city government. Dr. Tyagi, have you spoken to him? So they're both just passing the buck back and forth. Nobody wants to deal with it, and I don't blame them. It's impossible. I mean, you can't be feeding and attracting and rewarding these animals and not expect them to get more aggressive. And they do. They will slap you. They will turn your pockets inside out. They run around the All India Medical Institute, and they'll pull out IVs and suck on the glucose. They are kind of amazing at the things that they get up to. And it's sort of a bizarre series of balcony falling deaths. There were, I think, 4 different cases in the span of years. Or, I mean, it could have even been during the span of time I had a Google alert on Delhi and monkey. I think there were a bunch of people falling from their balconies because the monkeys jumped down and either startled them or in the ensuing panic. I'm not sure exactly how it happens.
I mean, the macaques seem like maybe the quintessential example of this, but it does seem like in general, the human wildlife conflict, the more serious ones, they are kind of intractable problems in a lot of ways. Like there really aren't great solutions besides trying not to attract them with food.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Much better, like with any crime, better to prevent it than to figure out what to do once it's happened, and how can we stop this from happening again. So prevention and when you have a situation where people insist on feeding them, and that happens here with bears, especially in the age of selfie sticks and TikTok videos, and people want an image of them with a bear, and people in this country seem to come in 2 flavors. I either think that bears are these terrifying predators that will like stalk them down. They're scared to death of bears, or they think they're like Yogi Bear, and you can just sort of walk up and take a shot with them. And often you can. They are a lot closer to Yogi than the predatory monster. But still, you one misstep and that thing takes a swipe at you, and it's not pretty.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Also, there seems to be like kind of a sampling bias that's going on. Like people think that wildlife is encroaching on their life more, but they just live in these houses that have cameras all over them, and so they just see them more.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah. There's I spent some time with a mountain lion researcher here in California. His business card actually says gray wolf and mountain lion researcher, which is like every child's dream job. It seems like that's a great job title. I'm a mountain lion researcher, but he is. And he said that people have this impression that the population of mountain lions is spiking. And he said, what it is, it's the technology. It's the doorbell cameras. He said, these animals have always been sneaking in at night. They're very stealthy. Mountain lions are incredibly, they're all over, the environment, Northern California. I've never seen one. I'm sure I've walked by and he said, I would bet my salary. I bet my, what did he say, 1 week salary? That every day somebody is within pouncing distance of a mountain lion in California.
Wow.
So the doorbell cameras, they're kind of the mammograms of the wildlife world. It's like the technology is catching a lot more of them, but the numbers may not be spiking. They are not, at least with the mountain lions, they're not. They're not spiking. The population is approximately the same, according to, they're doing a big survey here in California, and it looks like around 5,000. And the last count was estimated to be about 4,500 mountain lions in the state. But people have this impression because of all the doorbell cameras.
Yeah. So we're collecting some questions from the audience in the Q&A. So if you have a question, we see a couple on there, and I'll collect them at the end, and we'll ask them. So, but if you have a question, you're listening or watching along, put it in the Q&A, and I will try to get to them at the very end. I wanted to ask you a little bit about other types of animal human kind of collisions, like literally collisions in this case. When it comes to air travel, there's a fair amount of research as to what birds do, the damage they do to jet engines and the like. But I was surprised to learn from your book that the FAA, what the FAA considers the most hazardous wildlife to U.S. civilian aircraft. What is that?
The white-tailed deer.
Why deer?
Well, obviously these things are happening on the tarmac before the plane is in the air. There are no instances of planes aloft hitting deer.
Well, thank goodness.
No, there are none. I checked, but there are 2 instances of parked planes being damaged by deer. Perhaps a deer in rut. Don't know what it was thinking that the plane was some sort of challenger for the heart of some doe. I don't know how what those 2 instances were, but there are deer on the tarmac. So the plane is taxiing, the plane is taking off, or the plane is landing, and the deer just wander out onto the runway. And they're very, the bigger the animal or bird, the more damage is done, obviously. So yes, it's white-tailed deer, and which
that's shocking
was
to me.
amazing.
I guess the location, you need a little bit of space. So there's probably some greenery. There's wetlands, which attract birds, but also you can totally imagine a deer running across all kinds of airports that I've, been to for sure. But why are deer vehicle collisions, including cars, not just planes? Why are they such a problem? Like, why is there a phrase "deer in the headlights"? What is it that they can't do that is causing the problem here? And I mean, again, this is our fault. We're the ones doing cars at them. I totally understand that.
Right. But before we get to the headlights, the thing with animals in the road, prey animals, they perceive a vehicle as a predator, like this bigger, it's bigger than me and it's coming at me. That's like a predator. And animals have evolved this kind of amazing ability to compute how much time they have before they need to flee. Like, okay, I see this thing, and what they're perceiving is the image in their brain of it looming, it's getting bigger. Mm-hmm. So and how quickly it's getting bigger gives them a sense of how fast it's traveling. And so they have evolved an ability to process that, make that calculation for animals that have preyed upon them for millennia. But a car is a relatively new arrival, and a car is going way faster than any predator would ever go. A car going 50 or 60 miles per hour, their processor can't get that right. So they look up and they think, I got a little more time. Boom. They don't. And at night, the deer in the headlights thing is, and this is all through researchers at National Wildlife Research Center who are trying to kind of mitigate this and help deer to see vehicles. But at night, when all you have is a set of headlights, so 2 little points of light, it's very hard to tell that those points of light are getting significantly bigger. So it's hard for anybody, human as well, to accurately judge how quickly is that traveling. And even for deer, I think, are those 2 lights getting closer? So they just stand there kind of looking, going, it's kind of like these 2 lights there. I don't know what that is. And then it's too late. Yeah. So one of what this researcher, Travis Duvall, came up with is, he has partners too, but how it's a light bar. It's sort of an aftermarket thing for a car that faces the grill of the truck or car, and it illuminates it. So now a deer in the road will see, okay, that is something big and it's looming, it's getting closer. So it helps them realize that there is something coming at them, which is hard for them to do at night. So, and it seems to be helping. They got a patent for it. So I don't know, maybe we'll be seeing some people with their aftermarket grill illuminated to help. Because it's not just bad news for deer. If you look at people killed in interactions with wildlife, deer are killing way more people. And it's not always or not even predominantly when they hit a deer, but they swerve to not hit a deer. They go off the road, they hit a tree, they roll over. A lot of people get hurt or killed that way.
Yeah, I mean a lot of this confusion sort of resulting from the fact that cars are so much faster than anything they've encountered in nature before is what causes the, squirrels to zigzag, because that's their avoidance tendency. And so you're like, why don't you just get out of the way? And they're like, they're doing what they know how to do, which is, but why is it that you can almost never run over a pigeon, for example? Do you know why?
A pigeon, well, pigeons, and I spent a fair amount of time while I was working on this book. There's something called flight initiation distance, which I was calling FID, until the guy said, Mary, nobody says FID. We say FID. But I persisted. I'm saying FID just because I like to say FID. So the pigeons, a FID, flight initiation distance, is how close can you come to the animal before it flies off or runs away. And it goes species by species, but also depending on if there's something really delicious that it's eating and he doesn't want to give that up, it's going to wait till the very last second. You'll notice with pigeons, if they're eating something really delicious, or just for pigeons, pretty much anything, you could practically get so close you can touch them, because they don't want to give it up. And pigeons, well, I just recently read a book about pigeons, and pigeons are feral. Basically, they were domesticated for guano and for message delivery, and they were raised in the hundreds. People had these like little coats, like dove coats, little. It looked like a mail room, with all the slots, and they would have all these pigeons. So pigeons, and they were bred by people, and they are used to humans, and they were domesticated, and then they went their own way, became feral, but they are comfortable, far more comfortable around people than other birds. And I didn't know that. I thought that, I was like, I never understood that. Why do we just have pigeons in cities? What is it about them? They also, they're physiologically equipped, like gulls have a generalist beak. They can, very handy with all different food sources. They've got a very strong gizzard gut that withstands, they can eat pretty much anything. It's not going to slice it open and hurt them. So these are birds that are equipped for our food and taking advantage of it. But the pigeon thing was interesting, that they're like humans. Yeah, we have somewhere back in our DNA, we're comfortable with those things. And and they but anyway, you will hit a pigeon if you go fast enough. Yeah. They're city birds, and you're in the city, you're only going 20 miles an hour. So that's within the realm of a predator that they would normally be running away from. So you go to try a road where you can go faster. I'm not suggesting that you go out and test the FID.
Well, I don't need to test it. I'll take your word for it. So I have some questions about process, and there a lot of the questions in the Q&A are about this. And I was actually curious. There was a section in your book where you talk about trying to talk someone at the Vatican into talking to you about the gull incident, and also Pope Francis's general take on dealing with animal pests. And one of the hurdles you came across was that as a book author, they just didn't consider you press. And I've almost always been an independent journalist, and not being credentialed is just one of those things that you kind of encounter as an independent journalist. So how do you approach sources? How do you get into places?
I started out thinking, well, maybe while I'm here reporting on something else at the Vatican, I thought maybe while I'm here I can talk to the Pope. So I aim high, stupidly high, and then I called I had a couple of connections. Someone I know a priest who's no longer a priest who was in the Vatican. That didn't go anywhere. But eventually I got this woman who writes for the Catholic News Service, and she's been in the Vatican reporting for ages, and she was great. And so she put me in touch with somebody fairly high up in the Vatican media department. But he's like, well, yeah, all you have to do, you got to show that you're either, full-time radio, television, whatever. And I'm like, well, I'm not any of that. So because you know what, you're going to need to write to the Secretary General of Vatican City State, which is like, at the time, writing to Trump or something. He's like, could I come visit? So incredibly, I guess not that many people take this angle, because the Secretary General wrote back saying, and it was this very flowery, I'm not even going to do it justice, but basically saying, yes, we would be happy to host you in our lovely city state, and I will put you in touch. This was all through Google Translate. Okay, so it was kind of hilarious the way it translated it. And then it said, and we will put you in touch with, now I'm forgetting the guy's name, but anyway, his title was, as rendered by Google Translate, was Director of Gardens and Garbage. And I thought, well, that's exactly who I need. So that's who I went to see. But that whole thing unfolded over weeks. Yeah. I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm like, I know there's got to be a way. It can't be that hard, right? How hard could it be?
Yeah.
So I'm very persistent.
John de Hartog on the Q&A asked about your background. How did you sort of cultivate such eclectic curiosity?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't have anything in my background to really that you would look at and think, oh, I can see where she's going to end up. It's just not. Although I've answered that question a bit, and when I began to really think about my childhood, there were a couple of things, like when I was in second grade, someone gave me a Barbie doll, and I didn't like dolls, and so what I would do with it is I pull the head off, and I go, "You've got 5 seconds to get the head back on, or she dies." So, and then I look, you look forward 40 years, and there, or 35 years, and there was the chapter in Stiff of like. Whether a person has some consciousness after the guillotine. So, yes. If you really search, you can find some
morbid curiosity strains in there.
Some strains of morbid curiosity back in my childhood. But I don't know. It's just how I am. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, so much of your writing is about you being in places and kind of Mary Roaching around. It seems like there's a little bit of follow-up interviews in the book that seemed to happen after COVID. They took place on Zoom. That you could tell you were that wasn't working for you. Like as a person, you're very disappointed by it. It came through in the writing. How would that change your work? Like I mean, luckily you got all this, all this travel in. I can't even imagine.
No, I would have been completely derailed. What I did do during COVID, fortunately, everything but a couple chapters had been done.
Yeah.
When COVID hit that March, and I was able to. It was fine. Had it happened a year earlier, I don't know what I would have done. Mm-hmm. I ended up, I did some things that you don't need to travel for. I did a young readers version of Packing for Mars. I did an epilogue, an update for Stiff. There were things that I had in the back of my head to do at some point, and I thought, okay, this is the time. This is when we're going to do that. I don't know what I can't do. I couldn't write my books. Like absolutely, I couldn't. And also, it wouldn't be fun for me. What I love about what I do is that I get to step into these worlds that I didn't know existed, and I would otherwise not have any access to. And to me, it's like the most enjoyable travel there is, to just wander into somebody else's life and somebody else's career, and the travel is really fun too.
But you can tell, like, that's so much of what the joy of it is in that, and you interacting with people, and then you eating chocolatey mouse bait and them going, did you eat that?
Like, you ate it? Do you want some gum? I know, I did. It smelled so good, Roman. It really smelled like this sort of chocolatey, coconutty. And I thought, well, the rats enjoy it. I wonder what I don't know. Is that weird that I tried it?
It's not weird for you.
Well, it was definitely weird for Aaron, the guy I was with.
Shields, yeah.
Aaron Shields is like, you ate some? Okay.
So David Melman asked if you know, like looking at your shelves, you have like a number of books behind you. If you're not reading or researching science literature, what kind of fiction and other type of stuff do you like to read?
Oh, well, I love to read fiction, but I read nonfiction as well. That question always, it's always so hard for me to choose a book. I steer people to my Goodreads page because I only list books that I liked, that I've read, and so that's a good. But some books that I wrote from the past year, and also I'm often reading books that I was sent to read and blurb, and sometimes it's wonderful to, like, I just recently read a book by Nikki Twilley and Jeff Mayno on quarantine, the history and future of quarantine, which was something that was sent to me, and not a book I would have necessarily picked up having lived through quarantine, and it seems like that would be boring, but it's so incredibly interesting, that book. So that one, and Lulu Miller's book, Why Fish Don't Exist, which is an absolutely impossible. She's at NPR and she was Radiolab for a while. And anyway, that book was just astounding and surprising and very difficult to. It's part memoir. It's nonfiction, but it's beautifully written and just takes all these surprising twists and turns that you just couldn't anticipate. And so I just read The Every by Dave Eggers. Wow. I like Dave Eggers a lot. The Every is the follow-up to The Circle. And it's imagining what happened if Google and Amazon merged. It's both chilling and funny at the same time, and both envisioning a dystopian future, but also then you kind of go, oh, wait a minute, it's already here. So anyway, I'm all over the map. Great. But the check out the Goodreads list if you want to know.
Awesome. I remember, so we've known each other a long time. I interviewed for Stiff a long time ago. We shared an office for a while in Oakland, and we talked about your books and writing quite a bit casually. You've never, as far as I know, you've never done the audiobook for any of your books heretofore. And you did this one. So I read it and I listened to it when I was preparing for this. And you were great at it. I really enjoyed it. But it's really hard, isn't it?
Yeah, but not as hard as I thought.
Okay.
I thought, well, I guess I know from experience that people have very strong opinions about the person who reads the book. Yeah. And I thought, these are professionals reading the book. I don't know how to do that. They're trained. I don't have any training. I don't know, kind of like, how do you do different people's voices? I went into it really knowing nothing. And I had a director, just because it was during COVID. So it's just a guy in my ear in LA. He's in LA. So you have somebody kind of just letting you know when your energy is faltering a little bit. And but the people in the studio were great. So it was fun. My only regret is that we didn't, they should have kept the outtakes. Just like, there should have been, me getting the same word wrong like 50 times and then just losing it. And like that, I suggested to the company that they do.
Well, that is very bold. I actually pre-edited my own reading of my own book, just because I was so embarrassed of the things that I would mess up over and over and over again, and I couldn't send it to them.
You rehearsed?
So I would edit it before my editor got to it.
Oh, so, wow. Wow.
So I'm much more self-conscious than you are, apparently.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you liked it, because I really don't. I just I don't know. I was just trying to be myself.
Yeah. Well, you achieved it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the main complaint when I didn't do it, is that it didn't sound like the voice people had in their heads when they read. So I thought, well, I can at least be that, because I wrote the damn thing. So I can be true to that. But I was going to do the last book, but they made me audition, and I went in and no, I didn't get the part. I started reading. They gave me something to read, which is an old column of mine, not even the book. And this guy goes, okay, start reading. And he stops me after like 3 sentences. And he goes, I know that in your own head, you sound really interesting and energetic, but I'm telling you that you don't. And so here's how you should read it. And he, it was kind of like that in a small town in New England, it was just, it was just, which was fine, I guess, but it just felt so not me that I after 15 minutes said, you know what, you're better at this. You do it. I'm out of here. But then the experience was completely different for this time around. And I enjoyed it. I would definitely do it again. Did you enjoy it?
Oh, I hated it.
You hated it. Oh, you did.
Well, it was just, it's like 12 hours of stuff. And like, I just get sore and tired, and I do a lot of voiceover different ways. And like, I just found it very, very hard versus, there's a slightly different writing, for text, at least for me, than my audio copy is.
Yeah.
And so I would find myself doing the thing I normally do, which is kind of like shaping the written script to fit my mouth in the moment I'm doing it. But you can't do that when you're reading your own book. You have to do it exactly as it's written on the page.
Yeah, you do. There were two chemical names that I included when I was talking about immunovaccines, and they're 6 syllables each. We got to them. First of all, I'd never get them right. Second, nobody cares. So I don't even know why I put them in the book. But I said to the director, let's just skip that. He goes, oh, I think we better read them. I'm like, no, we don't need to. He goes, are you sure? Are you sure? Okay, well, make a note of that. He says to the sound engineer, make a note of that in the file that Mary says we don't have to say. Mary's leaving these out intentionally. It was a big deal. And I left out dihexamethyl loxahuha. It's not in. Sorry, people, it's not in the audio book.
I one more question for the audience, and then we'll wrap up. Lenora Jennings is asking, is there one story or anecdote that you encountered in your research that did not make it into the book?
Oh, there's a bunch of stuff that didn't make it in because I initially thought that I was going to include the other side of wildlife crime, which is the forensics of crimes against wildlife. And there was this case of the headless walruses that there was being investigated up way up in Alaska, where it's very close to Russia. And these headless walruses were washing up, and they were trying to do forensics to figure out, did the heads naturally come off as the animal decomposed, or was the head cut off for ivory, which was the likely thing, but they had to prove that. And I couldn't and in the process of that, I discovered that there's something called the Walrus Dictionary, which is native hunters have hundreds of words for different walruses, male, female, first season, second season calves, time of year. And I really wanted the Walrus Dictionary to be in there. And I tried to even fit it in a footnote, and so now I'm just blathering about it on Zoom. So I wanted, the Walrus Dictionary, I wanted that in there. And the hair library. There's a massive, very detailed hair library up at that forensics lab up in Ashland, Oregon. So I didn't get that. And the there was a Bigfoot thing. Anyway, I couldn't shoehorn that. It was just cleaner to do wildlife as the instigators. So that stuff all is sitting in the back of my filing cabinet.
Well, there you go. You have it for later.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to invite Daniel and Tom. We've used up our hour. I could talk to you for hours and hours on end. But I really enjoyed this time to reconnect with you, and the book is so good. And so I hope everyone buys a copy and reads it and enjoys it the way I did.
Thank you so much. That's lovely to hear. Thank you so much. So I admire the crap out of you.
That is nice for me to hear as well. But thanks again for this hour, and thanks for hosting us. And we had a great time. So,
yeah, thank you so much, you guys.
Yes, we both admire the crap out of both of you. One last, we have just a reminder that we do have links to purchase the books, and some links to some other things too that you mentioned, like Fish Don't Exist, and some events. And just remember, everyone, if you click on those links now, they'll show up in another window, and they'll still be there when we go away. I have one last thing for you. So we have the signed copy and the patch. We're almost out of the patch. We might not have any left. I had one of my customers showed a picture of her grandchild as a ranger patch.
Oh, fantastic. I do love the patch.
Yeah.
You actually made patches of
We
this?
made patches. Yes. I don't have one. Oh, wait.
You got to save one for me, Mary.
Check. I would. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's really
It's so
amazing.
great.
I
I'll
love
give
it.
you one. Sure.
Okay,
Absolutely.
you got to get one.
This is unique, special compensation. People will ask if they wanted a copy. We love wherever independent bookstore, whatever independent bookstore someone buys a book. Is there a store where they can buy a personalized copy or a copy with a autograph instead of a book plate? Can we give a shout out to a store near you where you do that?
Oh, well, geez, I'm not sure. There was we had a whole list of the stores that participated.
Somebody,
yeah.
If you were happen to go to a store in the next month or so, which one would it be?
Oh, if I were to go, oh God, well, you know what? I would steer people to Bookshop or IndieBound, just because then they.
Oh no, this is for a signed copy. So, like
for a signed copy.
Yeah.
I don't know which.
If they're going to go to Bookshop, they might as well just go to us because we're also good.
Exactly. They should just go to you. They should just go to you. I don't know which stores locally where I live have signed copies. Yeah, the only and the patch promotion is, sadly, it's the independent bookstore patch promotion is. I guess
nearing its end.
Yeah. Well,
but I don't know. This would be a good challenge for somebody.
Yeah, there'll probably be some. They'll show up on eBay. I know that Barnes and Noble in October has a few in store, but I like to promote the independent.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks to Schlitz Audubon Nature Center. Thanks to Rowan Mars, and thanks to everyone who attended today, because we wouldn't have a bookstore or nature center without you. So